The alien fleet hung in space like an unstoppable storm, vast and intimidating, their ships shimmering with alien technology, sleek and advanced, each one towering over the human ship that crawled toward them. The human vessel barely a dot against the infinite canvas of space. The aliens watched the approach with disdain and amusement in their minds. The mission was simple: subdue or destroy the humans who dared to wander this far into their domain. They had done it countless times before, each conquest swift and effortless. They had wiped out species far more powerful than the humans. So when they saw the approaching human ship, it was not fear they felt, but derision. They expected no more than a quick elimination. The ship itself was an outdated relic, a remnant of a bygone era, a ship designed for exploration, not war. It was sluggish, slow in comparison to the ships of the alien fleet. Its engines were old and unreliable, and its weapons were primitive compared to the alien technology. The humans had done their best to disguise their vulnerability, but there was no escaping the truth. The vessel was a sitting target for the fleet ahead. The aliens had long since grown bored of the sight. As it moved toward them with deliberate slowness, they barely considered it a threat. But still they prepared to deal with it in the usual fashion, with nothing but an arrogant sweep of their mighty fleet. At the helm of the human vessel stood Captain Sarah Nolan, her eyes fixed on the viewscreen ahead. She could feel the weight of every second ticking by. The silence of the bridge was almost deafening as her crew worked in synchrony at their stations. She knew the gravity of the situation. They were outmatched in every sense of the word, but she refused to show weakness. She could feel the hum of the ship beneath her feet, a ship that had seen better days, yet one that carried the hopes of humanity within it. There was no turning back now. She had made her decision. They would face the aliens head-on, even if it meant they would never return home. Her fingers brushed against the console beneath her, and she glanced at her second-in-command, Lieutenant Miles Carter. He met her gaze with a determined nod. They had trained for this moment for years, and though the odds were slim, they knew the aliens had made one critical mistake. They underestimated humanity. They underestimated the human will to survive, the human ingenuity that had pulled them through countless challenges on Earth and beyond. Sarah had seen the reports from Earth. She knew the aliens had been expanding their territory, slowly crushing any resistance in their path, and now they were here at the edge of human space. She had no illusions about the odds, but she had something else, something the aliens did not understand: human resourcefulness, human creativity, the kind of thinking that would allow them to fight with weapons that were not yet understood. The ship might be slow, but that did not mean it was without its hidden capabilities. As the alien fleet advanced, she issued orders to her crew, keeping her voice calm and steady. They were going to make their stand here, and now she felt a fire in her chest, a resolve that burned brighter than any alien weapon ever could. The aliens were about to learn what happens when you underestimate a species fighting for its survival. Captain Sarah Nolan stood tall at the center of the bridge, her gaze unwavering, as she monitored the steady approach of the alien fleet. Her crew moved around her like clockwork, their faces set with a determination forged in the fires of countless simulations and impossible odds. They all knew this was not just a mission, this was humanity's last chance to prove their place in the galaxy. Sarah's mind raced, but her exterior was calm. She had faced worse odds back on Earth when she was a young officer, but nothing had ever felt this real, not like this, not with the fate of an entire species hanging in the balance. The alien fleet loomed larger on the viewscreen as it advanced, unrelenting in its pursuit. The scale of the ships was incomprehensible to human eyes. Each vessel was the size of a city, an unimaginable powerhouse of weaponry and shields that no human ship could withstand. But the humans had learned long ago that sheer size and power were not the only ways to win a battle. It was the mind, the will, the heart of the people that truly decided the outcome. Behind her, Lieutenant Miles Carter watched the alien fleet with narrowed eyes. His hands moved over his console with practiced precision. A signal passed between them without words. He didn't need to ask. He was already calculating the odds, running the numbers in his head, working through every possible outcome, and finding only one that would give them a chance to survive. "We can't outrun them," he said without speaking, his voice echoing in Sarah's mind. Like a warning, the alien ships are faster. Their weapons will shred us before we ever get close. Sarah nodded, and then took a deep breath. She wasn't surprised by his words. She had known it too. The human ship was slower than the alien ships by a vast margin. Its engines were built for exploration, not combat. They had no chance of outrunning the fleet, or even evading them for long. But they had something else, something the aliens wouldn't expect. She looked toward the communications officer, Ensign Alicia Rivera, who was monitoring the incoming transmissions, her face a mask of concentration. Sarah knew Alicia was hearing the alien voices taunting them with their mockery of humanity's pitiful efforts and their dismissive orders to turn back. She felt her jaw tighten. They didn't understand. They couldn't possibly understand what it meant to be human and to fight for survival. Sarah took a step forward, her voice calm but firm, resonating across the bridge. We might not be faster, but we are smarter. We've spent years developing technology they don't even know exists. We can make it work. We just need one shot, just one opening, and we'll make them regret underestimating us. She turned her gaze to each crew member, watching their faces light up with renewed resolve. They might not have the power of the aliens, but they had the power of human ingenuity and grit. Sarah reached out and gripped the console before her. We've got one shot, she said, more to herself than anyone else. If they took the first blow, they'd lose everything. But if they struck first, if they could exploit the aliens' overconfidence, they might just stand a chance. Her crew worked in perfect unison. Now their roles as soldiers, as engineers, as tacticians, all coming together into a single focused effort. They might not be able to win by strength alone, but they could win with surprise. She looked back at the view screen one last time. As the alien ships grew closer, still the final distance shrinking to mere moments, she felt her pulse quicken. This was at the moment they would either rise to the occasion or fall to the dark void of space. But she believed in them. She believed in humanity's ability to adapt, to survive, to fight back when it seemed impossible. She had no doubt the aliens would soon learn the true power of a species pushed to the edge and beyond. The silence on the bridge was deafening as Sarah's fingers hovered over the control panel. She could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on her shoulders. The ship was nearly within range, the alien fleet now filling the entire view screen, their ships brimming with power, yet showing no hint of concern for the small human vessel hurtling toward them. The alien ships moved with slow precision, almost leisurely, their confidence a palpable force that hung in the cold vacuum of space. They didn't see them as a threat, just another insignificant dot in the vast expanse of the galaxy. Sarah tightened her grip on the console. The ship was crawling closer every second. She felt the tension rising, her mind racing through the contingency plans, the escape routes, the countermeasures. None of them seemed to matter anymore. They couldn't outrun them. They couldn't outgun them. All they had was the element of surprise and the belief that they could use what the aliens considered weakness to their advantage. Lieutenant Carter stood just behind her, his eyes locked on the alien fleet, analyzing the movements of the ships, scanning their formation for any hint of vulnerability. He had been quiet for the last few minutes, focusing entirely on his calculations, on his assessments of the enemy's strengths and weaknesses. But Sarah could see the spark in his eyes. She could sense his determination. They both knew this was their one and only chance. We're too close to turn back now. Sarah thought they had committed to this battle. There was no escaping the alien fleet, no retreating into the darkness of space. They had come this far, and now it was time to act. She turned to face her crew. Each member of the team was waiting for her command, their faces filled with a mixture of hope and fear, yet in each of their eyes was a singular understanding. They were all in this together. They would fight as one or not at all. Sarah took a steadying breath, and then she spoke, her voice cutting through the tension like a knife. It's time we make our move. A ripple of energy passed through the crew members as the order was received and passed into action. Everyone had their role to play, and they knew it now. It wasn't just about survival. It was about making a statement. It was about showing the galaxy that humanity would not be crushed without a fight. The alien fleet was still advancing, slow and steady, believing that the human ship posed no real danger. They had no idea that the ship was armed with technology. They had never encountered technology so old yet so advanced that it could penetrate the very core of the alien's so-called invulnerability. Sarah knew that even if the human ship wasn't fast enough to outrun the aliens, the technology aboard it had been designed for moments like these, for turning the tables when everything seemed lost. She nodded toward Alicia, the communications officer, and Alicia immediately activated the subspace comms. The signal would be invisible to the alien sensors, but Sarah had one final card to play. She had to make sure the aliens were fully unaware of what was about to hit them before it was too late. Sarah turned back to Lieutenant Carter, who was watching her closely, ready for the next command. His voice was steady as he spoke. "Captain, we've locked in the coordinates for the disruptor. We're ready to fire on your mark." The disruptor was humanity's ace in the hole, a weapon designed with principles dating back to the early space age of Earth, a weapon built to take down advanced shields and technology that could not be breached by conventional firepower. It was humanity's best hope against an enemy that had no right to underestimate them. Sarah didn't hesitate. She had one shot, and she was not going to waste it. The alien fleet was in range now. They were practically within arm's reach. She glanced at the view screen for a final moment, her hand hovering over the trigger, and then without another word she slammed her palm down on the activation panel. "Fire," she commanded, and the ship surged forward as the disruptor unleashed its full force, shattering the silence of space with an explosion of energy. The human vessel surged forward as the disruptor weapon came to life. A brilliant pulse of energy blasted from its core with an intensity that seemed to crack the very fabric of space itself. The aliens on the other side of the battlefield were unprepared. The energy pulse shot toward the nearest alien warship as though guided by some unseen force. The vast ship, looming like a titan in the dark void of space, was no match for the raw, unrelenting force of the disruptor. The alien ship's shields flared brightly before they collapsed under the pressure. With a soundless roar, the energy washed over the ship's hull and tore through its armor as if it were paper. Fragments of the alien vessel were sent scattering into space, a cloud of debris marking its destruction. The alien warship disintegrated before their eyes, a massive chunk of their fleet gone in a single moment of unimaginable power. Sarah stood frozen for a heartbeat before she snapped into action. She knew this was only the beginning. The first blow had landed, but it wasn't enough. The alien fleet had to be shattered completely if humanity had any hope of surviving this confrontation. But the destruction of the first warship had sent shockwaves through the alien forces, ripples of confusion and panic spreading through their lines as the other ships hesitated, unsure of what had just occurred. Lieutenant Carter's voice cut through the chaos. "Captain, they're scrambling their formations. They're trying to regroup, but we've already hit them with a blow they didn't see coming. They're vulnerable now. They don't know how to respond." Sarah's eyes flicked over to the tactical readouts. As they updated in real time, she could see the alien fleet attempting to reorganize, but it was too late. The human vessel was already in motion, its engines flaring as the crew accelerated to full speed. The aliens had underestimated the human ship, and now they were paying for it. Alicia, the communications officer, worked furiously at her station, weaving through the electronic noise coming from the enemy fleet. She quickly activated their countermeasures to protect the ship from any retaliation and broadcasted a false signal intended to confuse the aliens even further. "We've got them off balance, Captain," she said with a fierce grin. "They're not sure where the next strike will come from." Sarah nodded grimly. She didn't need to tell the crew what to do next. They all knew the drill. As the ship darted between the massive hulks of the alien vessels, they struck with precision. A series of well-placed hits from the disruptor tore through the hulls of several smaller ships, each one exploding into a violent burst of flame and debris. No alien ship was safe as the human vessel danced through the alien formation like a shadow. The aliens now realized the mistake they had made. They had come into this battle with their arrogance, blinding them to the true nature of their enemy. The human ship was slow, yes, but it was agile, it was unpredictable, And most importantly, it had something the aliens hadn't prepared for: the raw cunning of a species fighting for its survival. The alien ships tried to retaliate, but the human ship was already gone, darting to the next target before the first explosion had even settled. The aliens were disoriented, their coordinated attacks faltering under the sudden barrage of human fire. They had never faced an enemy like this. They had never fought against a species willing to do anything to win, even when the odds were impossible. Sarah felt the adrenaline coursing through her veins, but she kept her focus sharp and steady. The battle wasn't won yet. They had only just begun to turn the tide, but the aliens were beginning to realize that the human vessel was no longer the slow, helpless prey they had assumed it to be. The human crew had brought everything they had to this fight, and they were about to show the alien fleet that they had made a grave mistake underestimating humanity. They were fighting not just for survival, but for the future of their species, and Sarah knew that as long as they kept fighting, they might just have a chance. The alien fleet reeled from the initial shockwaves of destruction, disarray spreading like wildfire through their ranks. The once confident invaders were now struggling to regroup, their once perfect formations shattered by the precision and ferocity of the human assault. Sarah stood in the center of the bridge, her eyes scanning the view screen with a cold, calculated intensity. The time for hesitation was over. They had made their move, and now they had to press the advantage. Lieutenant Carter's voice broke the tension, his words sharp and quick. "Captain, they're scrambling to form a defensive perimeter. They're pulling back their larger ships, trying to protect the rest of the fleet. They're expecting a follow-up attack." Sarah didn't wait for him to finish. "We'll give them one," she replied with determination. "Prepare the next wave. I want the disruptor ready for another shot. This time, we hit their command ship." The command ship was the heart of the alien fleet, the one vessel that controlled all the others, sending signals, giving orders, and keeping the invaders organized. If they could destroy it, the entire fleet would fall into chaos. Sarah knew the risks were enormous. Even if they succeeded in crippling the command ship, there were still dozens of enemy ships left, ships that could easily obliterate their vessel with a single shot. But they had no choice. This was the moment that could decide the fate of humanity. The human vessel, though battered, surged forward again, pushing its ancient engines to their limits. The alien ships, still struggling to comprehend the speed and power of the human vessel, moved to intercept. But they were slow, disorganized, and unsure of what to do. Sarah felt a surge of adrenaline as her ship darted between the massive hulls of the alien ships, making its way toward the heart of the fleet. Ensign Rivera, her eyes glued to the comms panel, worked quickly to hack into the alien fleet's communication systems. The scramble within the alien ranks meant their communications were becoming increasingly erratic. She sent out a false distress signal, hoping to confuse the remaining alien ships into thinking the command ship was under attack from within their own ranks. The deception was perfect. The human vessel drew closer to the command ship, its engines roaring with a newfound energy. Sarah's hands tightened around the controls. She could feel the pressure mounting, the weight of the universe on her shoulders. She glanced at Carter, who was watching her, waiting for her next command. "Now," Sarah said, her voice a low growl of confidence. The disruptor powered up again, the humming of the weapon vibrating through the ship's hull. A bead of sweat rolled down Sarah's face, but her focus was unshakable. She knew exactly what she was doing. As the alien command ship loomed ahead, her finger hovered over the activation panel. The moment arrived. Fire. A surge of energy erupted from the human vessel, tearing through the void of space with an explosive force that illuminated the dark expanse. The disruptor fired with pinpoint accuracy, hitting the alien command ship squarely in the center. The shields around the ship flickered for a moment, barely holding, before they collapsed entirely under the power of the strike. The alien command ship shuddered violently, its hull crackling with energy as internal systems failed one by one. Sparks flew from the outer plating, and then, with a violent explosion, the command ship erupted into a ball of fire and metal. The shockwave sent ripples through space, sending smaller alien ships flying back as debris rained down on the battlefield. Sarah's breath hitched, but she didn't allow herself to revel in the victory. The battle was far from over, and the remaining alien ships were beginning to adapt, their anger fueling their desperation. But one thing was clear now. The human vessel had struck a decisive blow. The aliens were no longer in control. They were no longer the hunters. They had become the hunted. Sarah turned to Carter, her voice steady despite the chaos around her. "Maintain course. We're not done yet. We've shown them what we can do. Now we finish this." The crew nodded in unison, understanding the gravity of the mission. This was no longer about survival. It was about something more. Something bigger. Something that would echo through the galaxy for eons to come. Humanity had proven its worth, and now they were going to make sure the universe never forgot it. The battlefield had transformed into a swirling vortex of chaos. The once organized alien fleet, now disoriented and panicked, floundered in the aftermath of their command ship's destruction. Their lines of communication had been severed, and their once unstoppable advance had ground to a halt. The massive ships, once confident in their invulnerability, were now vulnerable, scattered, and uncertain. Sarah stood firm on the bridge, her eyes narrowing as she watched the devastation unfold. The destruction of the command ship had thrown the aliens into turmoil, but she knew better than to assume victory was within their grasp. The battle wasn't over, not by a long shot. The remaining alien ships were still formidable, and they would be coming for blood. They had tasted defeat, and now their rage would be boundless. "Carter," Sarah said, her voice even and controlled despite the tension. "Analyze their movements. We need to know what they'll do next." Carter was already on it, his fingers moving across his console with surgical precision. "They're consolidating their forces, Captain. A few of their smaller ships are attempting to flee, but the rest are regrouping. They're going to make one final stand around their capital ship." Sarah clenched her fists. "They won't get away. We'll hit them while they're still disorganized. Alicia, can you scramble their communications any further?" Alicia's voice was calm but filled with determination. "Already on it, Captain. I'm feeding them false signals, reprogramming their internal communications to make them think their remaining ships are still in a defensive perimeter. They'll think they're safe in a false formation." Sarah nodded approvingly. "Good. Keep it going." They were using every trick they had, every advantage humanity could muster. They weren't going to let the aliens regroup. Not now. Not after everything they had fought for. The human ship, battered but resolute, darted back into the fray. The crew, fueled by adrenaline and an unbreakable will, worked as one. Every move was calculated, every attack deliberate. The alien ships were still powerful, but they had been shaken to their core. They had been forced into uncertainty, and that was the weakness Sarah was going to exploit. The human vessel moved with precision, zigzagging through the remnants of the alien fleet, exploiting every opening. The disruptor charged again, the hum of its power building in the ship's core. Sarah kept her hand on the console, poised to fire at the first vulnerable target. "Carter," Sarah said again, "what's the status of their remaining ships?" Carter's eyes remained fixed on the screen, scanning the alien fleet. "There's a cluster of their largest ships near the back, Captain. They're trying to reorganize around their flagship. If we can destroy one or two of those ships, we'll destabilize their entire formation." Sarah's pulse quickened. They were close. This was the moment to strike hard, to make sure the aliens could never recover. "Do it," she commanded. "Target the largest ship in that cluster. We're not giving them a chance to regroup." The crew sprang into action. Alicia fed new false data to the alien fleet, pushing them further into disarray. The alien ships, confused and unable to adjust, were caught off guard as the human ship surged forward, weapons locked and ready. The disruptor fired again, a crackling bolt of pure energy slicing through the dark void. It hit the alien warship dead center, and the ship flared with an intense, violent burst. The alien ship's shields flared for a second, but couldn't hold, Within moments, the ship was ripped apart, sending debris scattering in all directions. The explosion sent shockwaves through the alien fleet, further weakening their already faltering defense. Sarah didn't flinch. "Another," she ordered. "Hit the next one." The disruptor charged again, and the human vessel pivoted, swinging toward the next target. The remaining alien ships tried to regroup, but the damage was already done. They had lost their momentum. And now, they were losing their edge. As the second alien warship exploded, Sarah allowed herself a brief moment to breathe. But she knew better than to celebrate. There was still a fleet out there, still enemies who could rally and bring the full weight of their wrath down upon them. "Carter," she said, her voice low and steady. "We've broken their lines, but we need to finish this. Where are their last defenses?" Carter looked back at her, determination etched on his face. "They're trying to consolidate around the flagship, Captain. If we target their last defenses now, we can hit them while they're vulnerable." Sarah's eyes locked onto the view screen, and she could see the alien flagship in the distance. It was massive, its shields still strong, its weapons still deadly. But it wasn't invulnerable. Not anymore. They had torn apart the fleet. Now, it was time to finish this once and for all. The bridge hummed with a quiet, tense energy as the crew prepared for the final phase of their assault. The battle had raged for hours, but now, the alien flagship was all that remained between them and victory. Sarah stood firm, her gaze unwavering, as she watched the alien ship loom large on the view screen. It was the heart of their fleet, the symbol of their power, and if they could destroy it, the rest of the invaders would collapse like a house of cards. "Captain," Carter's voice broke through her thoughts, "we've identified a weak spot in the flagship's shield array. It's a narrow gap in the rear quarter. If we hit it with everything we've got, we can breach their defenses." Sarah's heart raced. This was it, the one shot they had left. She glanced at the crew around her, their faces set with determination. They had come so far, endured so much, and now they were on the brink of ending the conflict that had threatened to wipe out humanity. They had no more room for doubt, no more room for error. "Do it," Sarah commanded, her voice resolute. The human ship moved into position, the crew working in perfect sync. Alicia's fingers danced over the console, jamming the alien fleet's remaining communications and feeding them more false data. The alien flagship, still trying to regroup, had no idea what was coming. Sarah watched as the disruptor powered up once more. It had been their ace in the hole from the beginning, the weapon that had given them a fighting chance against an enemy that vastly outnumbered them. But it wasn't just the disruptor that would win them this battle. It was the ingenuity, the resourcefulness, and the unyielding will of the humans who had refused to bow to fear. The ship surged forward, the space between them and the alien flagship closing rapidly. The alien vessel, despite its immense size and power, was struggling to maintain its defensive posture. The distraction caused by the destruction of their command ship and the loss of several key warships had left the flagship exposed. Sarah knew this was the perfect moment. "Lock on target," she ordered, her voice sharp. "All weapons, full power. Fire on my mark." The ship's systems whined as they primed for the final strike, all energy focusing on that one tiny gap in the flagship's defenses. The view screen flickered briefly as the data came in, confirming the target's weak point. Every person on the bridge held their breath, knowing that one wrong move could mean their doom. They had only one chance. The alien flagship loomed closer, its massive weapons now swiveling to track their movements. Sarah's grip tightened on the arm of her chair, her pulse pounding in her ears. This was the final test of humanity's resolve, the ultimate moment of truth. "Mark," she shouted. The disruptor fired. A crackling beam of energy erupted from a human ship's core, slicing through space with blinding speed. It cut through the empty void, heading straight for the flagship's weak spot. The seconds stretched like hours, the crew holding their collective breath. The energy pulse hit its mark with a cataclysmic impact, flaring as the alien shields shattered like glass under the pressure. The alien flagship convulsed, shuddering violently as the blast tore through its hull. Internal explosions lit up the flagship's surface, and for a moment, it seemed as though the entire ship would break apart. Sarah's eyes stayed fixed on the view screen, watching as the once mighty warship began to disintegrate before them. The alien flagship's energy core ignited with an immense explosion, sending a wave of force rippling outward. The shockwave rattled their ship, throwing it off course for a split second, but they held steady. The flagship's destruction was complete. It was gone. The remaining alien ships, already weakened and disorganized, had no will to fight. They began to scatter, trying to flee, but they were no match for the human vessel now. The survivors of the once invincible alien fleet were broken and disoriented, their power and morale shattered in one decisive blow. Sarah's heart hammered in her chest, but she didn't allow herself to relax. Not yet. The battle wasn't truly over. There were still a handful of alien ships left, but the real threat had been neutralized. The flagship was gone, and with it, the backbone of the entire fleet. "Prepare to mop up the rest," Sarah ordered, her voice steady despite the rising tide of triumph that surged within her. "We finish this." As the human vessel continued its assault, tearing into the scattered remnants of the alien fleet, Sarah allowed herself the smallest of smiles. Against all odds, humanity had done it. They had turned the tide. They had fought back. And now, the galaxy would remember the day the aliens had underestimated the power of the human spirit. The remnants of the alien fleet scattered like roaches in the wake of a storm. What had once been a powerful armada, seemingly invincible and poised to annihilate humanity, was now reduced to a chaotic, disoriented mess. The alien ships, still large and formidable, tried desperately to regroup, but their unity had been shattered. Sarah watched from the bridge, her expression hardening as the final phase of the battle played out before her eyes. The human vessel, though battered and scarred from the relentless assault, moved through the wreckage with renewed purpose. They weren't simply survivors now. They were conquerors. The disruptor had torn through the heart of the alien fleet, and now the enemy was splintering. The once proud alien invaders were running, hiding, and for the first time in the battle, they were afraid. "Captain, they're retreating." Carter's voice was filled with disbelief, but also a sense of awe. "We've got them on the run. We've crippled them. They're abandoning their ships." Sarah stood in silence for a moment, processing the enormity of what had just happened. Their victory wasn't just about surviving the onslaught. It was about proving that humanity could stand tall, no matter the odds. It was about sending a message to the galaxy that no matter how dark things got, the human spirit would not bend, would not break. "Keep pushing them," Sarah commanded, her voice cold but filled with authority. "We're not done yet. We'll chase them out of our space for good." The ship's engines roared to life once more, accelerating toward the fleeing alien ships. The crew, though exhausted and battered, rallied behind her. Each one of them had given everything they had, every ounce of strength, every ounce of willpower, just to get to this moment. And now they would finish it. Alicia worked furiously at her console, jamming the alien communications and feeding false signals, sowing confusion among the retreating fleet. "I've scrambled their navigation systems, Captain. They don't know which way to turn. They're disoriented." Sarah nodded. She knew they couldn't let up now. The aliens were retreating, but there was no guarantee they wouldn't come back stronger, more prepared. They had to make sure that humanity's victory was absolute, that there would be no regrouping, no second wave. With a calculated precision, the human vessel closed in on the nearest group of alien ships. The disruptor powered up again, its energy crackling in the core. The alien ships, scattered and confused, tried to regroup in a last-ditch effort to defend themselves. But it was too late. The humans had already anticipated this. "Fire," Sarah ordered, and the disruptor unleashed a wave of devastating energy that tore through the alien ships, one after another. The explosion of each alien vessel illuminated the vast expanse of space, a testament to the power of human ingenuity and determination. The shockwaves rippled through the void, sending the remaining alien ships fleeing in every direction. The crew let out a collective breath, but Sarah's focus remained unwavering. They weren't out of the woods yet. There were still a few alien vessels left, trying to escape into the darkness of space, but they were no longer a coordinated force. They were scattered, disorganized, and utterly defeated. Captain Carter's voice was quieter now, but still filled with awe. They're retreating completely. There are no more organized attacks. We've won. Sarah allowed herself a single brief smile, but there was no time for celebration. Not yet. Not until they had driven the last of the alien fleet out of their space. "Continue pursuing," she commanded, her voice steady as ever. "We chase them down until they're gone." Minutes passed, each one feeling like a lifetime. But as the final alien ship blinked out of existence on the view screen, a sense of finality settled over the bridge. The battle was over. The galaxy would never forget this day. Sarah stood up slowly, her crew watching her with a mixture of exhaustion and admiration. They had done it. They had faced overwhelming odds, stared down a merciless alien armada, and come out victorious. Humanity had won, not just the battle, but the right to survive and thrive in a universe that had once seemed indifferent to their existence. "We've done it," Sarah said, her voice barely above a whisper, yet carrying the weight of all the sacrifices, the struggles, and the victories. "We've won." And for the first time since the war had begun, she allowed herself to truly breathe. The universe had been reminded that humanity would never bow to any invader, not without a fight. And in the silence that followed, the crew of the human vessel stood together, knowing they had forever changed the course of history.